Hello everyone, welcome to part 3 of the Chesemobiles. Today I'm going to show you marks 10 through 13. To start, we're going to get rid of the axle drive and use the wheels to drive the motor bodies instead, because that'll give us better torque with the heavier Gloomdredger chassis. So here you see I've done that. I had to use a U-block on the back to give a little bit of space for that wheel to drive the motor body, otherwise it's going to run into the Gloomdredger chassis. Then I wanted to play around with some things, so I was like, what if I put a sword on that front wheel so that can spin around? But that's going to be difficult to hit enemies unless you're pointed straight at them, so just having a little fun. Here I was testing what if I put kind of a lawnmower underneath, where I have an electric motor with a frost emitter. And this one, I like this idea, but there's just not quite enough room. I feel like going over a rock will easily knock that off. Here I'm testing if I use electricity versus no electricity, what the speed difference is going down this hill. On the left is, of course, with electricity. And we can see that it's just a little bit faster, so you do get a bit of a speed gain from the electricity versus no electricity. But you don't need the electricity. We're going to try a drop test again now. Perfect. I like how it just bounces. Also, we're good against landmines. So, the pros of Mark 10 is we got better climbing because I squeezed the wheels onto the motor bodies. It also looks great, I think. Cons are that I think I can get the grip a little bit better. And we also need some sort of damage, right? So let's add a nice melee spinner on the front. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stake nudge now. My plan is to stake nudge 2 frost emitters out away from the motor and then attach weapons to those. So here I'm just showing you a series of my stake nudging attempts. I have my car over on the right so I can keep testing the spacing and make sure that everything's lined up well that way. So here I've added the second weapon. One will be a smasher and one will be a saber. That way I can deal with armored enemies, but also then do damage with the saber. I'm going to attach it up at the water temple so there's less gravity sag, and then line it up with the middle. And we got our whirlpool on the front of frost. One frost emitter is pointed straight out and one's pointed diagonally out. So that's why there's kind of the 2 spirals within each other. But let's go test this out on some enemies, right? Testing on this silver bokoblin party. So pros of this, it looks sick. It also handles really well. But then cons are that it breaks easily, so I guess I have to do something else. It also has a bunch of energy use with the always-on frost emitters. Let's add a propeller instead, because that's going to be a lot stronger. We'll add our frost and weapons onto the propeller, I'm thinking, but this can also help with climbing. So I've attached it to the electric motor here, and we've got that nice forward thrust with the fan. Can't reverse very well with it though because the electric motor is always on. But let's see how it does climbing. Okay, it's doing pretty great. Oh, it just breezes over that. Alright. Let's see how much damage it does. Yeah, I can't reverse. A little bit. Oh my gosh. What, did you see that? Alright, so now I'm going to attach a large wheel onto it as well. This concept comes from Ultra Bob Win, where the wheel can oppose the motor. In neutral, it does thrust. In reverse, it does thrust. And pushing forward, it doesn't provide thrust anymore. So that way I can exceed the speed limit going down hills. But this one definitely won't be able to reverse too, because we also have the forward thrust in reverse. But If I push forward, I can just do my high speed on ground, and then if I hold neutral, then I'll get thrust from the fan and just can leave the left stick alone while I climb up a hill. And then I can also leave it at neutral going downhill, and it will slow me down. So I can safely go down all these hills. And this is me holding forward. But then here's me trying to reverse it. I think it started working there because the front driving wheel hit the wheel and stopped spinning the motor. But let's see what the downhill speed is like if I'm holding forward so the propellers aren't turning on. We got good speed. And if I needed to slow down, I would just hold neutral and the propeller would slow it down. Now I'm trying 2 large wheels instead of the electric motor at all. So in neutral, we got thrust. This one's kind of the opposite of the last one, where if I hold reverse, I won't get thrust anymore. But if I push forward, then I'll get really fast thrust. Let's test it out on some enemies. The useful part, though, of using the large wheels is that you can reverse now with it. And it's got great climbing still, so this was my favorite of the iterations. What we need to do is add some weapons to it, though, and it would have a small AoE with kind of like a cylinder in front of it. So what I'm going to do is use a large wheel stake nudged out front to be a larger AoE melee spinner. And then I can also put a turret on top of it. So I nudged it down so that its axle is sticking up. And I wanted to make sure there was enough room here for this driving large wheel on the front. I think I'm going to nudge it a little bit further forward. While I was working on this, there was an update about the alignment of the large wheel on the motor body. As we see from Blaze Alchemist, you can use the large wheels on the motor body, but avoid the notches for a much smoother and faster ride. They're traveling faster now than they would be if the wheels were on the motor notches. Well, here you can see how it's lined up on that motor. So I wanted to see if I could do that on my build, where I attach it here, and it's just avoiding the notches, as you see. We'll attach the backside as well. Alright, now that everything's attached, I'm going to stake it up and start activating everything. Make sure all the motors are connected by electricity. Looks like this one isn't. And make sure everything is smooth. So let's get the shock emitter a little bit closer to that motor. There we go. And everything's looking really smooth. See that melee spinner on the front? Oh yeah. I haven't put anything on it yet. I just wanted to see how it handles with that extra weight on the front. I'm trying to like snake my way up the hill, but it's a little bit too heavy. Without that wheel, I could make it up slowly, up over there. Here's what the speed looks like going downhill. And with that, we've got our Mark XIII with the pros of the melee spinner on the front. It's got really good speed. Cons are that avoiding the notches reduced the climbing and torque of it overall, though. So I think going forward, I'm still going to try and use the notches in order to get good climbing with this Gloom Dredger. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. That's going to do it for today's video. Next time, I'm going to show you the build guide and the last iterations of the Chesemobiles.